friends, welcome back to Freedom Homestead. I'm Tangi and today I'm going to show you how I have been making our sandwich bread. For the longest time I made our sandwich bread and we never bought store-bought sandwich bread, and I made them in just regular loaf pans. And the problem with this, and the reason why we went back to buying store-bought bread, is that my husband complained and my kids that anytime you would use that bread for sandwiches, it would just crumble and fall apart. And if you make bread, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There wasn't really anything I was doing wrong. It was just the nature of homemade bread using these loaf pans. Last year we got to visit that 1870s homestead, and Rachel had made us a picnic lunch and showed me some of her homemade bread, and I was just in awe that her loaf was square and that the bread was nice and dense, and it made really great sandwiches. And I asked her, how did you make your bread like this? And she said, I use a Pullman Loaf Pan, which I had never heard of. And so she showed it to me, and it is a nice heavy loaf pan that is square, and it has a lid. And she said that it gives you a square loaf, plus with it having a lid, it prevents the bread from like puffing up and just kind of makes it more dense. So it's perfect for sandwiches. So I was super excited about it. I ordered it from Amazon, and I will throw the link in the description box below so you can check it out. So I wanted to get back into making our sandwich bread again. I was trying different recipes and couldn't really find one that I liked. I was still having issues with dry bread. But what I did recently was I just kind of combined a couple of different recipes that I had tried. Loaf of bread I made was perfect. So I actually made this bread 3 or 4 days ago. I just made myself a sandwich with it. It held together, it didn't crumble, it's still nice and soft, and it's so flavorful. I made a wheat loaf, but you can kind of see there's the back of it. And look at the texture. I mean, is it not fantastic? So I'm gonna show you how I am making our sandwich bread now. You're gonna want this recipe. This is for a 13 by 4 inch loaf. I'm gonna show you this recipe. You're gonna want it. Just keep watching. To make this delicious sandwich bread, here are the ingredients that you will need. Whole wheat flour, white all-purpose flour. You need dry milk powder. You need yeast, and you need salt. You need sugar, and you cannot skip this ingredient. I don't know what it is about this ingredient, but it is a total game changer. You need a few tablespoons of instant mashed potato flakes, unflavored of course. And then of course you need some warm water, and you need an oil. You can use, I'm using olive oil today. You're just going to use that oil to grease your bowl when you let the dough rise. You're also going to need 6 tablespoons of softened butter. I have the recipe in the description box below. In my mixer, I am adding all of my ingredients: water, my sugar, the yeast, the instant potato flakes, the dry milk powder, the salt, whole wheat flour, white flour, and the butter. With my dough hook attachment, I am going to mix the ingredients until they are all combined, and then I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and I'm going to allow the dough hook to knead the dough for 5 minutes. When time is up, I'm going to drizzle some olive oil in my bowl to get it nice and greasy so the dough doesn't stick. I'm taking the dough out. I'm just kneading it a couple of times to make it into a smooth ball, and then I'm going to put it into my bowl, and I'm going to turn the dough over in the oil so it's nice and slick. Then I'm going to cover my bowl with a tea towel and allow it to rise. Okay, so now that the dough is done, we've got it oiled and covered. We're gonna let that rest and rise. And really the time that you're going to do that is going to depend on the temperature of your house. The temperature in our house is 68 degrees, so it's really going to take between 1.5 hours to 2 hours to almost double in size. Your home might be warmer and it may only take an hour. So I'm actually going to check on mine in about an hour and then just go from there.
2 hours later.
A couple of hours later and my dough is ready. It's doubled in size and it looks fabulous. So to prep my pan, I'm just gonna take some vegetable shortening. You can certainly use lard, you could use butter, and I'm just greasing the pan. And then I'm going to take out my dough, and then I'm gonna kind of press it out. So what I do is I use my pan as a guide. So I'm pressing out the dough the same length as the pan, and then I try to get it about double the width of the pan. And once I've done that, then I'm going to roll up the dough, and I'm going to show you how I kind of do this. And the reason why this part is important is because you want to make sure that the dough is nice and dense, so that way there's not any weird like holes in your bread. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. Once I roll it up, I pinch the seams on the bottom and I roll it, and then I stick my fingers into the sides and pinch it, and then I roll it again. And you're going to see that I kind of keep mashing it and then rolling it back out, then mashing it up again and then rolling it back out. So you saw I just did the ends, and now I'm pinching the seam, and then I'm going to start rolling it to kind of smooth that out. Here you'll see in a second, I'm gonna again mash it. I'm just pressing the ends together, kind of making a short loaf and then rolling it back out. Once my loaf is nice and smooth, I press it down into the bottom of the pan. Okay, so after we get the loaf formed, we're gonna let it rise on the stove while the oven is preheating, just so that heat can help get things moving along. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the bread dough to rise, and when it gets to about an inch from the top here, then that's when we're gonna stick it in the oven. Now again, how long that takes is gonna depend on your house and the other variables. So just check on it in about 30 minutes. Mine usually takes about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to do the second rise.
1 hour later.
Okay, it's been right at an hour. Oh yeah, we are there. We are definitely there. You don't want the top of that loaf hitting the pan as it rises, because it can make your loaf deflate. So I'm gonna put this in my oven. It's at 350, and we're gonna check on it in about 30 minutes. Yeah, I definitely speak from experience when I say that it can definitely rise too much. There was one time that I let it rise too much, and when I pulled the lid back, the dough was sticking to the lid, and so it just kind of deflated it. I was not happy about that. But anyway, so it's gonna bake at 350 in the center of the oven. In about 30 minutes, we're gonna check on it, and lightly golden brown, I like to take the lid off and bake it for about 5 more minutes, just to get it more brown and to make sure that it's baked through. So we'll check on it in 30 minutes and see what it looks like. So we've got almost a minute left on the bread. I can already smell it. It smells amazing. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out my cooling rack. And you also want to make sure that you have some butter on standby. I'm going to paint my loaf with butter, and that just helps keep your crust nice and soft. Okay, so let's check on this bread. All right. All right, let's look at this. Oh, yes. Okay, I'm gonna leave that in for just a couple of minutes and try to get a little bit more brownness on the corners, and then we'll come back. Oh my goodness, this smells so good. Okay. So I've got this a little bit more brown, and it's come away from the pan a little bit more on the side, so that's a good sign. So I'm gonna turn this out onto the cooling rack. So I have 2 cooling racks, and you'll see why here in just a second. So I've got it like this, and then I'm gonna turn it like that. And then lift this up. Oh, how perfect does that look? And then I'm gonna take This one's the trickier part. And there we go. Look at that. Is this not perfect? And now we're going to, just gonna take some, this is just room temperature butter. I leave my butter out on the countertop all the time. So I'm just taking my silicone pastry brush and just grabbing this butter, loading up my brush pretty good. And then I'm just gonna paint this onto my bread loaf. I try to get it pretty thick because I like for my crust to be nice and soft. Okay, so we're gonna let this loaf chill out or cool for a little while, and then when we come back, we're gonna cut into it and I'm gonna show you how amazing it is. I'm almost finished eating my piece of delicious homemade bread, and I've got Jack over there munching on his piece of homemade bread. If you keep it wrapped when not in use, obviously it's not gonna dry out as quickly. If you have a bread box, even better. But anyway, I hope you guys give this a try. If you don't have a Pullman Loaf Pan and you are interested, I've got the affiliate link for it in the description box. It really makes fantastic bread. I cannot recommend it enough. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Until next time.